Hello, and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we continued to work on my new Herbalism Helper plugin. We finished showing the possible loot in the new window, but I realized at the end that the size of that window is based off of my custom UI layout. So today what we're going to do is we're going to scale that UI down to 100% instead of whatever it is on my system. And then recreate the window from there. And that's just going to adjust things a little bit. Then we're going to incorporate a scaling mechanism that we've seen in plugins like Minstrel Buff or Hunter Decoy, so that a user can say, oh, I want this to match mine. Mine's at 140%. I want this to be at 140%. That kind of thing. And if that all goes well and we have time, we're going to release the plugin as well because it's basically feature complete for the one feature of showing the possible loot. And so if there's anything else to happen with Herbalism plugin, it'll happen in a future version. So as always, feel free to jump and chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let me move some stuff around. Okay, my goose and I are here in Herondir, in the Wastes, which is a big location for herbs in the North Ithilien / the Wastes Herbalism content. If you are not familiar with what that is, then you're in for a treat, because that's all we're going to be talking about today. So, in the Waste and in North Ithilien, you will find an herbalist associated with the Host of the West faction. And they will do things like trade for the super rare amber and sapphire extract with the basic ones. You can see I've got 2,000 umber extracts and I've only got 119 amber extracts. Let's see. You can also, importantly, come on down here, and when you are working with Host of the West reputation, trying to max those out, you might find it useful to get a set of brittle lockpicks. You'll see those are worth, cost 20 violet and 20 golden each. Possibly more importantly are the journals that you need for crafting recipes. Those are 25 each for the violet and golden. So definitely want to know if you are, for instance, have way more golden than violet today. If you're going to be picking golden or violet off of an herb, or one of the lower level ones that just does not matter that much. So we are going to go ahead and go find an herb so that we have something that our plugin can key into. We're also going to go ahead and make sure Herbalism Helper is loaded. It is awesome. It really doesn't do anything other than adding an extra loot window when you're targeting an herb, so it's a little hard to tell that it's loaded until you get there. They can be scattered all throughout the waste, but I tend to come on over here to the swampy area on the west/northwest. Oh, and Eye of Night, yes please. So Eye of Nights tend to start with 2 to 4. Where's my window? Did window expire? Oh my goodness, I thought it said 3 days. It must have said like 3 minutes. Well, we're gonna go fix that. Let's go on over to Kinship Member's house, and then we'll pop back over to Herondir and pop on out and hopefully find the Eye of Night. We have 18 minutes before Fordon. The Eye of Night naturally only comes out at night. Little Redhead says that she did not know that. I get that information from the wiki. The wiki says Eye of Night only comes out at night, and that's what I have observed as well. And then there might be one that only comes out during the day. Let's take a look at that. Is there an Eye of Day? Possibly. Flora. That's the link. So if you go to the Herbalism Flora page, we can see that the Eye of Night is found after dark, mostly in the area of the Dead Marshes. And the Wraith Scowl is found during daylight. So that is the counterpart. And I want to say Wraith Scowl only has violet. Well, that doesn't tell us, but I would like to know. So let's go ahead and come on in to our flora definition and see Wraith Style that has violet. So that is a complement to the Eye of Night that comes out at night. Don't forget to grab my window. I got my window, thank you. And I have my subscriber tone services right here. I'll have to definitely have an adjustment if I ever play without the VIP services. Okay. So I was noticing I didn't have a window because I am very used to seeing 3 to 5 in that number because I'm very used to having a Fateful Toolkit on. However, I've been playing with an alt recently, and I really wanted the extra barter tokens that come from completing quests in Mordor. So, okay, Eye of Night, 3 to 5, and it's suggesting that because of my Fateful Toolkit. There we go. There was 4 of them. So, now that I picked it up, though, I'll need to go generate something maybe better than a horsetail. There we go. Bone Mallow. So, what is the problem? If we go ahead and do a UI layout save streaming, then we can see I've saved my UI layout to this location. Awesome. Let's come look at the UI layout, UI settings. At the bottom, there's a whole area for UI scale. And my concern is that this window here is probably being scaled up by one of these settings. But I don't know that it is, and if so, I don't know which one. So the first thing we're going to do today is figure out what, if anything, is scaling that. So, let's see. Opponent vitals seems like that would be it. There we go. So we can go down. Let's make a note to ourselves. Herbalism Helper. Issues. There we go. The window instead of log messages. Window is complete, but size was based on a 140% opponent vitals scale. Need to recreate with a 100% scale, then scale up or down as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and comment that. In fact, let's go ahead and, I don't know, that's really small though. Maybe we don't do that. Okay, I want to try it just to see. What? No, I want to take a rectangle. I'm going to do a little snip here. Great. And we're going to go ahead and move that away. Comparing 100% opponent vitals with window based on 140%. So let's go ahead and do that. If you're looking to upload an image to a GitHub issue, you can just have it on the clipboard and Control-V or your preferred paste method, and GitHub will take care of the rest. And you can see in here, what it did is it uploaded that to a user attachments area of GitHub, and that it inserted the appropriate GUID in that path. I don't know if there's a lifespan on those images, but I assume they're good for at least a couple of years, possibly as long as there is a reference to it that it'll stay alive up to a certain size limitation maybe. I haven't looked into that, but the images that I have posted from way back are still there, although that's in a corporate environment, so we'll see. It's good for right now anyway. Okay. So that's the 100% size, and it is so small looking. In fact, if we come up here and just say reset all UI scales and accept, I'm going to be a little weirded out by how everything looks. In fact, I'm going to want that radar in the upper right to be a little bit There we go. Maybe I could get used to this, but when I was first playing, I definitely really wanted to be able to see what was going on in my icons down here. Okay, so we have our bone mallow. What we want to do is recapture this right here. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for a background that's sufficiently different from it that we can go ahead and just be a little lazy. I don't know where this is stored in the game files, if at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just load that little snip into the GNU image manipulation program and start removing the things that aren't what I want. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and we can see that if we go ahead and do a fuzzy select, that we are going to delete most of the things that are not relevant. I'm a little concerned about the darkness of that transition, and that makes me wonder if I shouldn't use a lighter background like that cloud, because of the way the transition between the lightness of this border and the background works. We might get something a little less terrible. So let's go ahead and bring this on in. Okay, do another fuzzy select. What do we think about that? Well, I'm definitely going to get rid of that. I'm definitely going to remember to have a transparent background. What is going on? Why can't I delete that? I can delete that. Great. Okay, so looking at that, the transitions seem maybe a little less severe, especially in the corners. So that's good. Is there... Well, I could wait until daytime, I suppose. Yeah, it's good enough for now. We can always replace this later. So if we go ahead and image, we're going to fit the canvas to the layer. No, sorry. If we want to crop to the content, just bring it on down to exactly as wide as it needs to be. That is going to go ahead and give us our opponent vitals. So let's go ahead and export that as something. And that's going to go into Documents, LOTRO Rings Online, Plugins, Cube Plugins, Herbalism Helper, Resources, and that's going to get us into Target Window Background. Now, this is a classic case where I forgot to look up what the game calls the thing. So Opponent Vitals is what the game calls the thing. Let's call it the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and come in here and... Nope. Name it Opponent Vitals.tga. 100% might also be a useful thing to put in there. So we're going to go ahead and export that. And we'll take that compression. Apparently that compression really matters. There's someone who's trying to do a first-person layer of animating your hands and weapons and whatnot as a plugin, and they were rendering without compression accidentally, and it was like 10 gigabytes of images or something. So, you know, that compression seems like a good deal. Okay, we're going to go ahead and come on in to an Explorer window so that we can get ourselves over to that same location, Cube Plugin Helper Resources, and that target window background.tga. We're going to find that in the code, and my goodness, the music in the waste is a little intense sometimes. We're going to go ahead and just knock that down a little bit. Now, the waste is a little intense sometimes, so, you know, no knocking it, but... Okay, so the target window background, first thing we want to do is find these things. We want to rename this to Opponent Vitals Background. Because again, if you can name something the way the game names it, you're going to just reduce confusion. And the other thing we're going to do is go ahead and rename this to opponent vitals, and I want to say it was 140%. But easy enough to double check. We're going to bring the options window back up and come on down to the UI settings, opponent vitals, and bring up to 140. And look at that, basically the same thing. So, great. We have that as 140. That's a placeholder, essentially, while we work through the rest of these issues. So we're going to go ahead and come on in, say opponent vitals is actually going to be opponent vitals 100%. Now, this is going to be terrible looking, but let's go ahead and load up the Herbalism Helper. Okay, well, it's definitely not working. I wonder if the percent is causing problems. It probably is. That is probably being treated as an escape character. Let's not give ourselves problems. What is the common abbreviation for percent? Percent abbreviation. I want to say like PCT maybe. PCT. That sounds great. Percentum. Okay, we're going to do that instead. And I should have thought about that before even daring to put a percent sign into a Lewis string, but here we are. Okay. Why is it not working? Let's copy paste it and make sure. Okay, well, I'm definitely doing something wrong. And so when in doubt, let's back it up. Does the other one still work? Not that one, this one. No, something about it is wrong. What have I done? We're just going to back out our changes there. Okay, it's working. Excellent. Let's reduce our potential for issues. There we go. Okay, so what was up with the name change? I didn't save all. Surely that's not the only problem, but that's certainly a problem. That would certainly do it. Okay. There we go. So, opponent vitals 100%. That allows us to see that by default, the window that we set this as the background with is bigger, so it's doing a tiling effect, which is, maybe that's useful in some cases, but it certainly isn't useful for us. But we can see that what we're doing almost kind of fits, but not really, because we were also using the space off the right. So let's go ahead and rename this to 140%. and take a look at that. Okay, so why is this a problem? Well, we can't tell with this one. So let's go ahead and collect these bone mallows, because I do need them, and then head somewhere else. Where are we? Not close enough to the swamp. We're going to go more to the swamp because we're more likely to get one of the plants that can be multiple things. And that's really what we're looking for. Dun, 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 dun. Or just violet in general, because I am short on violet. Okay. Guess it's still nighttime, because there's an Eye of Night in play. Okay, we are approaching the swamp. Excellent. Looking for is it? Wait, is it Wraith Scowl? No. Larkspur. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. So we wanted, or I wanted, a space near this window. Or in this window near the files in some way, either below or adjacent to them, where we could say how much are we expecting. That is to say, you're going to get somewhere between 0 and 6 of each of these, but in total, we're only going to get 5 to 8. And that's slightly muddied by the Fateful Toolkit. Normally 0 to 5 of each of them, 4 to 5 total. So you might get 2 to 1. For instance, or 3-1-0, or 3-2-0. That's I've seen many variations on that. Hello, Karaman. And then if you boost it up with a toolkit, then each one of these that you do get is going to be increased by 1, but only if you get it. So if you were going to get 5 of this, now you're getting 6. If you were going to get 2, 2, and 2, well, 2, 2, and 1, now you're going to get 3, 3, and 2. Okay, so what does this look like if we have the smaller window? And the answer is probably not great. Now, I was thinking about resizing it. Maybe we don't resize it. Maybe we just have it look... Okay, the way I'm seeing this, if it was just up a little bit, it would be okay. And I'm also wondering, we never have a combination of golden and violet. It's always the three basic, the three basic ones, whose names I have trouble remembering. Is Umber and Crimson and Umber and Verdant. So I think you only get that. So we can actually slide that underneath the two that are phased out, I think, and it would still work. So what we're going to do is start playing around with this window layout. First of all, target window. Let's come on in. Let's do something funny. We're going to go ahead and do image, and then width equals, and then height equals. And for that, we're going to come in to the program here, and we're going to get a size. It's 225 by 58. Whoops. Okay, great. 225 by 58. So any place where we're using this, which is just the one place, we want to go ahead and set the background to that to .image and set size. We're going to go ahead and do a dot width and a dot height. Okay, so just keeping all of that information located in the same place. So we, if we're ever changing this thing, we're going to have an immediate, oh, I should change this thing as well. So just helping us maintain this a little bit better. So what does that look like if we go ahead and unload Herbalism Helper and reload it? Okay, great. The window's approximately the right size, but what is going on with that right side? I think that's an overlay. No, that was me. Okay, I deleted too much stuff. Well, let's see what we can do about that. I think we can do this without that problem. And certainly, go ahead, image, fit canvas layers, great. Let's go ahead and get this bit out of there. Let's do a lossy threshold is 10. What if the threshold is 0? Am I gonna? Nope, it's not helpful. All right, threshold of 10 it is. So we're gonna get that. Connect that. Let's get a threshold here. And let's come in and fix that. No. That was too much. I want to just fix those two. Oh, just a little dark. Just a little dark. Says that. Whoops. Says that. Just trying to prevent the things that won't blend nicely with the background, or won't blend as nicely with the background. That's actually okay. That one's all fine. It's just these really sharp ones. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and redo the image crop to content. And then we can see there's still something over here. So image crop to content. Still's not working. No, really. Okay, great. Nothing over there, nothing over there. So let's go ahead and re-export as opponent vitals 100%, replace, and then, yes, compress. And then let's go ahead and unload that and reload that. Okay, and now the right side of that is looking much better. It was doing a transparency thing where it was taking part of the dark sky behind, and I wasn't here for it. Okay, so next thing up is we need to slam these icons basically 1 pixel away from that top edge if we can. So how big is this top and left? So the top is 5 pixels wide. So let's see if we set ourselves up with the top margin. Top margin is 9. No, top margin is 6. Let's come in to here and okay, this is 6 wide, so left margin is 7. It's going to be the same for the right margin almost certainly, but we can double check. Nope. Okay, that is actually only 5, so we only need a 6 on the right margin. And the bottom margin is currently a 5, so let's make that a 6. Awesome. Now, are we really sure about that left margin? Because everything else was really consistent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, okay. So with that in place, let's go ahead and see. Awesome. Things are already looking better. However, we can see the Larkspur's overall summary is missing, and also these numbers are getting really close to the bottom there. Let's go see the file texts. Where is this? This is set position. Let's, instead of basing it off the top margin, let's go ahead and do text set position. Left, and then also it's going to be self get height minus now I'm seeing perhaps a problem. Yeah, let's go to the text top margin. What's up with this? Text top margin is 5, and the icon height. Let's just shave that down to 2 and see how that looks. Oh, that looks much better. Okay, so the last thing is we want to bring in that expected min-max, and the position, we don't want it to be the files that get left. We want it to be, sorry, not the violet get left, but the verdant get left plus, I don't know, 5. Let's give that a shot. I'm not convinced 5 isn't too much. Let's see it with 0. My goal is we don't want it to be associated with the golden and the violet extracts because it's not. And I think that's what we're getting here. Plus the icon width plus 0. Is that really what's happening? Icon set back color turbine.ui.color. I don't know, red. Bottom neat. Why is it so far from there? Expected min-max set back color turbine.ui.color.dark red. Oh yeah, okay. Did we set an alignment on this? Maybe? Is that what's going on? We have a text alignment on these, which is fine. Why is there the appearance of a text alignment on those? Okay, what's the text going into these things? Set text expected min-max. Oh, we've got a space in there. I think that's it. Yeah, that'll do it. All right, let's remove those background colors and see how it looks. I'm worried now it's a little bit too close. Okay, but now I understand what's going on with that spacing a little bit better. Okay, we added a couple of pixels there. It's probably fine. I'm wondering, yeah, I'm second guessing myself because I don't want it to be associated with the golden and the violet, but I also would like there to be a little bit more space here. Okay, let's name this though. Let's not have a magic constant just floating around. So local expected min-max left margin equals 10. And then we can go ahead and pull that in here. So now we know why we're adding in an expected a value of 10. It's not a value of 10, it's a margin. Okay. That looks amazing. And so that fixes the window layout here. So let's go ahead and pause and commit our changes to source control. We're going to take a snapshot of all of this. I want to see that in the background. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is rename Are we though? Let's make this a little bit easier on ourselves. Okay, we're gonna put that in there for a minute. And what we're gonna do is for this commit, we're just doing the rename of target window background to opponent vitals background, and we're also changing to the 140. So we'll take that, we'll take these two things, which it's gonna identify as a rename because the files have identical or nearly identical contents. And then we need to come into target window and do the set background. We're going to delete that and add that. So in the target window, wait, that doesn't seem right. What's going on here? Oh, I see. All right, we're going to temporarily remove those. So it's a little bit easier to isolate that. Great, we're going to change that, and that's really it. Is we're changing that reference there, we're changing that, we're changing the name of the file, and we've changed that. Renamed file to match the in-game term. Great. Now we're going to come back in and undo our changes in Beyond Compare, and then we're going to go ahead and added non-scaled version of background. Not added, switched to non-scaled version of background. Okay, so there's that. Let's come on into here and get rid of that. Awesome. And in target window, yes and yes. All that's good. Verdant and that's great. And then that's great. Okay. So we have a non-scaled version of the window, but what if we want it to be scaled? What if I like having a 140 window and I would like this to be scaled as well? Well, here's where we need an options window because there are some other plugins out there, and I'm going to go ahead and just get the LOTRO Plugin Compendium up and running. So we can go ahead and add Minstrel Buff and Hunter Deadly Decoy as two examples of the form. So Hunter Deadly Decoy, really? It's going to need the turbine files? Well, all right. Turbine examples, thank you. Now, I actually don't like that link because it will include the examples and the libraries, but it's okay for right now. Okay, so Hunter Deadly Decoy. This has a scaling ability where we can scale it from down to 0.5 all the way up to 10 as an example. And the Minstrel Buff plugin also has a scaling ability that has been added in. Same basic idea. So that one can go down to 0.5 all the way up to 10. Notice that there's nothing that's keeping it on the screen. That's kind of on you with this version. So we're going to go ahead and play around with that same basic idea. But what we need to ask is, what can it be? The opponent vitals can go down to 0.4 all the way up to 3. So we would like to go ahead and mimic that in order to support any of the sizes that you're likely to encounter in the wild. Also, draggability is a concern. How do we move this thing around? Control backslash is kind of the obvious way to support this kind of thing. We can see the opponent vitals up here. That's a big space for the opponent vitals. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, let's see how the other ones do it. We'll go ahead and start with the 100 Deadly Decoy, because that one's a much simpler plugin. So it's going to be easier to pick apart what's important. Okay, so 100 Deadly Decoy. In main, we probably have an options. Draw options control. Great. Let's go ahead and scoot that up here, maybe. And we'll go ahead and be doing something over here. 100 Deadly Decoy was super simple, but I do want to go ahead and split things out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and make an options.lua. That will be included from main. Import cube plugins.herbalismhelper.options. Great. And in options, we're going to have a function, draw options control. And I'm pretty sure that's going to create an options that then gets returned. It is not. Wait, it might be. Stop pressing the wrong button. Okay, no. We're assigning it to plugin. Register options control. And that's going to be plugin.get options panel equals function sender args of return control and function create options control. And this is going to return an options. So local options equals turbine.ui.control return options, and in main we want to go ahead and call these. So make an options panel. So this is going to be local control equals create options control, and then register options control. And you know what? Let's be nice. Options control. Okay. So in theory, we have done it. Let's go ahead and say options set back color to turbine.ui.color.red and go check it out. So we're going to unload, we're going to come back into Herbalism Helper and load, and we now have an options window. Hooray! Next up, Cat just came in, but she is eating. So the next step, we want to do something with this options besides setting the background to red. In fact, we're going to keep it to maybe a dark red so that we remember to change its size. Now, this one changes the background color to something just vaguely there. We'll see about that. What we want to do is, there's a locked unlocked for the window dragging. I think I'd like to participate in the control // moving of things, because that's how you change, that's how you move the opponent vitals window. So that's how I want you to be able to move this one. So the scaling scroll bar. Fascinating. Right. So, when you are scaling a window, you have two options for how to save this information to persist it from one session to another. You can just say, you scaled this to whatever percent, so that's what you get. You scaled it to 140%, so you get 140% of normal. And alternatively, you can say you scaled it so that it takes up 20% of the width of the screen. So that's the scaling that we're talking about. And that's what we did with Hunter Deadly Decoy and probably also Minstrel Buff, is what we were concerned about there was presenting a coherent view. You load this up with a computer with a different resolution, or you change resolutions, then we want to be taking out a similar percentage of the screen as before, not get really small or really big. But this is meant to mimic an in-game item. So if you change screen resolutions, that thing is still going to be 110% of normal, I think. So I think here we actually just want to save off what was the percentage. So that's actually going to make life a little bit easier for us, and maybe a little bit not as fun for someone who has massive resolution monitors and would like to make this thing bigger. But we'll start here and we'll see how it goes. SSG keeps making reference to their goals of improving Lord of the Rings Online for people with large-scale monitors, 4K and above. So I don't know what progress they've made on that, but certainly it seems to be a bug that they are trying to, not a bug, certainly seems to be a thing they're trying to make progress on. All right, so we have a label for the scroll bar and a scroll bar to adjust image scaling. Great, let's get started with that. Why are we creating these things in the global namespace? Is that just me being silly? Yeah, little one. The cat has come for scritches. Yeah. You're exactly 1 foot too far away from me, and I cannot scritch you. Okay. I don't know if I was supposed to put in the effort or not, but no, not right now. Gotcha! Hi. Okay, come sit here a minute while I ponder. Okay, you all done? Thank you. You're gonna sit on my mouse? Okay, you do that. Okay, so obviously we're gonna need some localized strings. What? You wanna sit over there? Okay. And got a look from her as if there wasn't enough room. But that's only because my keyboard was where she might want to sit. Okay, so we're gonna want some strings. Yeah, we are. This is back when I was still doing the get string way of doing things. I think we're not going to do that today. So let's make a function, a folder called lang. Let's go ahead and make a file called en.lua and d.lua and fr.lua. Hey. Yeah. And let's pull open the documentation. I'm one-handed at the moment because Kato is taking scratches. But let's come in here to language and see, engine get language. So that should return one of these. Gonna need a second hand here in a minute, Kato. You have so much loose hair. We've been bad about what? Okay, that's just the music. We've been bad about getting some of that rid of that. Okay, so what we want to do is call get language and just not process these files if it's not correct. So the way that looks is if turbine.engine.getLanguage does not equal turbine.language.english, then return end. And this is going to be the same, but in each of these. So it doesn't equal German, and then doesn't equal French, then return. And what that means is we can just include all of these from our main. Oh, we already had strings. Interesting. Fantastic. We're going to go ahead and sort that out. So, Fateful Toolkit equals that. In the German, we're going to go ahead and do this one. And in the French, we'll do this one. So in main, we want to go ahead and instead of those strings, we're going to import lang.en, de, and fr. Now you could surround these imports with the check if blah blah blah, but sometimes I think it's easier just to have the file itself be the thing that cares about it. Hi. Now she's loafed behind my keyboard. I hope that works for you, Kato. Are you on my mouse cord? You are not. Okay. So, let's go ahead and fix up those references because this is almost certainly going to be wrong here. But it's not going to be that wrong because of some cleverness, hopefully. So what I want to do is switch that to lang. Actually, do I want it to be lang? I kind of want it to be L. So we're going to rename this to L. Sure, modify the require path. Thank you. So we're going to modify that to L. I don't know that that's going to work. Let's go ahead and do the full path. And where else? We have L Fateful Toolkit. We're going to kill those. You know what? We can have a Russian. It's fine. I don't... Actually, I'm not prepared for that. If you're a Russian player and you want access to this and you want it to work, let me know. But for right now, we're going to move on with the ones I can easily test. Okay, so strings, getting rid of that, getting rid of that. So we're going to go ahead and kill strings. So let's see if this works. Let's see if my strangeness is causing problems. Okay, different problem, options. Yes, I can see that. Okay, so that's fine. And let's see, make sure it knows about the Faithful Toolkit. It does. That's all great. So what we're able to do is make this look a little bit, I'm hoping, cleaner. By making our references to the Faithful Toolkit just our L, and that's going to delve into this folder, which is acting like a namespace, and let us just access. We don't need to have a giant table that's like lang equals a giant table. We can just define these things as variables in this subdirectory, and it acts as if it were members of that table in the global namespace. So hopefully that makes life a little bit easier. Okay. So now what we can do is have an options scaling equals. We can come on into our strings here. Let's see. Now, we can go ahead and make a table. So it's options, scaling, and let's go ahead and pull that. Because there could be other options as well. Dixie asks, wow, what's this add-on for? No, it's not for WoW, it's for Lord of the Rings Online. The add-on is for giving you an expected loot window when you're targeting one of the flora for herbalism in the North Ithilien or Wastes regions. So for instance, this Avengleam, we know is going to give me either 2 or 3 golden extract. Specifically, it's going to give me 1 or 2, which is going to be bumped up by this Faithful Toolkit that I have. So 1 to 2 is going to be bumped up to 2 to 3 with the Faithful Toolkit. So I go ahead and loot it, and I get 3. Hooray. And same thing with the Mornweed. We know it's going to give 2 or 3 golden extract, and it gave me 3. Larkspur will give me 0 to 6 of Crimson, Umber, and Verdant, but with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 8. So that's it. That's the whole thing that this plugin is for. Watch where you're walking, Marsh Lurker. And for that, we're just going to make an option that allows you to scale the window bigger and smaller. And in the UI scaling options, we have 2 decimals of precision, I'm noticing. So let's go ahead and make sure that that is 2 decimals of precision here. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and duplicate this here, but we will go, I hit the wrong key there. We'll go ahead and bring in those translations. So the German one here, it's going to be this, but remembering to do 2 digits of decimal precision. And this is going to be French, but 2 decimal digits of precision. So there we go. Everything is saved. That gives us options.scaling. So we can come on back here and get we're not going to use a get string anymore, and it's just going to be L.options.scaling. Undefined options, I don't think it is. Local scaling scroll value equals 100. Instead, it is receiving 3. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Let's give that a shot. unloading, reloading, retargeting. Everything's good so far. Going into the options. Hey, if you're going to lay on my mouse cable, you got to give me enough slack where I can move it. Silly cat. Okay. Hey, I want to take a picture of you so that little redhead knows what silliness you're up to. Okay, thank you. Yes, you're lying on my mouse cable. You're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Goof. It's this thing. Thank you. Okay, I've got enough slack. Okay, so this scaling here, we can see it's showing 1.00x. The x is not in the display there, but I think it's fine. Tempted to just do percentages, like 100%, but it's not what the in-game UI is doing. In-game UI is going 0.4 to 3 instead of 40% to 300%. So that's fine. Okay, so what is up with it not finding that? What about this? Okay, it doesn't complain about that. It's very strange. And I don't care enough to fix it. So, great. We have our strings. So, draw options control. We have a scaling scroll bar value, and that's going to be in our settings. We don't have a settings at the moment. We should make a settings. So, we're going to go ahead and have settings.lua. And in this, we're going to need to be able to save and load these settings. How do we do that? Well, let's bootstrap ourselves a settings system. Okay, there's a globals file. I find that confusing. Okay, so we need to be able to save, and the easiest way to do it is just to do it when the plugin unloads. So, register for unload. And where does that get called? From the main. So, we're going to want to go ahead and load settings and register for unload here. We're going to need these load and save settings. We're also going to need the status unloaded. Okay, we can get that. Strings unloaded. There we go. So, again, in our language files, we're going to have status equals and we want loaded and unloaded. So, plugin description. Is plugin name useful? Maybe. Plugin get name. Oh, I think it is useful because I was worried about plugins lifespan not persisting. Okay. Unloaded equals. That's going to be string format. And this is going to be loaded. Okay. So plugin description we need. But that's just going to be, the description is just this. That's fine. The plugin name is this. And the plugin version is this. So let's go ahead and copy that in to our others. And we only had the German anyway, so let's go ahead and swap in that. The German for the loaded is that. Great. So, are those readable files? No, we have some errors. Okay, unexpected symbol near English line 8. Well, that does explain why it's unhappy. I'm surprised a double semicolon is given at conniptions, though. Okay, new problem. Main 92, upload settings and save settings. Of course, we are in the middle of things. So, load settings. And save settings. We're going to go ahead and make some of these. Now this is using patch.save and patch.load, which doesn't do what I initially thought it did. Instead, it addresses the issue of extended ASCII characters and serializing that out numerically instead of by character, which is a valuable thing in some cases, but it doesn't really affect what we're working on here. So we're going to go without it for right now until such a time as we need it. So settings equals this. So this is a character? No, I think this is an account-wide thing, right? Like this option. Oh wait, no. These options. It's been such a long time since I created a new character, but I think it is character specific. But do I want to make people have to redo the scaling just like they redo the scaling for everything else? Because we don't... Hang on, if I do a UI layout load chicken, then I can say, then we can see loaded UI layout from blah. And if we say /UI layout save chicken 250617 saved UI layout to blah. I don't think it's a today thing, but I think it would be really interesting to recognize that someone has done that and save corresponding setting names. Because we could get that name of that .layout file. And we could then say, okay, we're going to name something similar for this. That would be account-wide, not even server-wide, account-wide. And then if you did a UI layout load, we could load the value that you had saved there for position and size. I think it would be very interesting. I'm going to make a note. So we're going to make a new issue. We're going to go ahead and copy these out. So title. Save settings, UI settings to account-wide files when UI layout save load is used. Watch chat for these messages. On save, try to now unsave. Save the current settings to the equivalent file. The Herbalism Helper chicken layout. On load, try to load settings from the equivalent file. If it does not exist, do nothing. And that would allow us to participate in the layout system, which could be very interesting for plugins to try to do. It's the first time we've really been thinking about this, but plugins, I think, could pay attention to that message and could kind of separate out their UI settings from any other relevant settings. And whenever you save off your UI settings, a plugin could dump that into a specially named thing, so that it's basically a plugin layout file. And if you load a corresponding layout, the plugin could pay attention to that and just change the UI settings. I think there's extra work to be had, so I'm glad this plugin only has like 3 settings to care about. But I'm going to think about that for other plugins. I think that'd be neat. Okay, so that is something we can track for later. Great. Does it show up? It does show up. Okay, so let's go ahead and not worry about that for right now. Instead, we're going to come into load settings and save settings, and really? At least you gave me some task items. Okay, data scope. So we are going to go load from local load settings equals turbine dot plugin data dot load, and that's going to be the settings data scope, and that's going to be the settings file name. Now, I didn't actually fix it. It's going to be Herbalism Helper settings. Okay, so that's the loaded one. So we'll just do a basic check. If we got a table, then else no save file found. Do we care about that? No? Okay, we do need a default settings, and for this is we're going to go ahead and keep some things around. Okay, so if good, then settings equals loaded settings. Okay. Euro normalize. Do we care about this? Ideally, we're only writing out a integer as a string. So I think we're going to hold off on that for just a minute. Let's go ahead and get save settings going. So we're going to be calling turbine.plugin data.save, and that's going to be the settings data scope and the settings file name and settings. Okay, so that gives us the core structure we need for this. Now let's see if that basic part works. It did not. Attempt to call load settings. You know what I didn't do is I didn't import I think, that file. So let's go ahead and come on into main and see, did we get settings? Import settings. Okay, unloading. Attempt to index, well, that is fair. On main, we attempted to unload. We attempted to get a string. So let's instead main status unloaded. Let's try it one more time. Great. Herbalism Helper unloaded. All right, when did loaded get used? At the very end of main, of course. That's fine. So, no get string. Let's see that. Okay, loaded Herbalism Helper version 0.0.1 by me. Cube! And unloaded Herbalism Helper unloaded. Hooray! Now we can actually tell that this is loading and unloading. You know what? We don't need that anymore. Okay. So, the location of this window needs to be a part of the settings. But what I'm realizing is that this isn't very forward thinking, but we don't actually care about it too much, I think. Okay, so this is over on Treebeard. This is, for now anyway, this is Affodil, and this is Herbalism Helper settings. And that should be a pretty empty file. It is. It returns a blank thing. Great. But, yes, it's a problem because if we load something, then we don't get any of those default settings. And a more robust solution merges the default settings in, or merges these into the default settings, perhaps. Do we want to care about that right now? It seems like overkill, but it is something to consider, is that if you introduce new settings, you want to pull those in, and then you want to overwrite any existing settings with what comes from the file. But when you only have like 4 settings, it's a bit much. But for now, we're going to keep on deleting that loaded file, or that saved file, because it doesn't have what we need in it. Okay, so in the settings.window, yep. So we want to go ahead and have a default settings. So we want the opponent vitals window equals, and this is going to have left and top. So left equals top equals something. But 0 and 0 are not good options. What we could do is default to what we're currently doing, is something around here as a reasonable default. So let's go ahead and come on into the window, which is called target window instead of opponent vitals. It's fine. And you can see set position here. Let's go ahead and say left. Let's give it like a reasonable looking number, and 150. Great. Width and height are not configurable here, so we don't have to worry about that. And then the scaling equals 100. Represents a percent can be between 40 and 300. Okay, that just gives us that information for later. What else? Anything? That's pretty much it? I think that's pretty much it. So what we want to do is unload that. We're going to go ahead and delete the herbalism, load and unload, and then the herbalism should, yep, there we go, have scaling top and left. But we can see that we're getting numbers, and we would prefer not to do that. So an easy way to bypass that is the settings are strings. And then we just parse them as numbers when it's time to use them. So we're going to go ahead and reload this. And now we can see, hey, all that decimal stuff is gone. And now we don't have, because we know none of these are intended to be decimal points, decimal numbers, we don't have to worry about the Euro versus US issue of using a comma or a period as your radix point. So that's good. Okay, so now you can't as easily get away with that. If you do need the decimal point stuff, you'll be storing these as strings, but parsing them may have a problem. I would have to test. I always have to test to make sure, but it's not going to be a problem today. Okay. So what that tells us is if we are in here and we put the left as, say, 650. It is not being used yet, but it is being persisted. So let's come on into the target window and start using that. So we're at one, settings dot opponent vitals window dot left. And we are seeing again that it doesn't really like that. And so it stops complaining. I'm just going to do it like that. So, and then we get top. And that should be it. Okay, everything looks great there. Let's go ahead and come on into the text file and set that to 650 and 250. And we can see it's moved over and down by about 100 each. Okay, come on in, put it back to 150, back to 550, load that on in. It's great. Okay. So we don't have the window movable yet, and we don't have it resizable yet, but we're getting a lot closer. So what we want to do is, now that we have a settings system in play, we can use the settings, that scaling thing, we can start paying attention to that. So we can swing all the way back around to our options where we were looking for this value. Okay, so that is going to be settings, and then whatever this is, opponent vital window, there we go, dot scaling. Okay, fine. Okay, we do see it as 100. Now let's start putting together the pieces for the scaling here. So the timer control, no, what am I even saying? Wrong thing. Draw options control. There we go. Okay, so the scroll bar, we have the scroll bar value. So we're using that scaling thing. In the target window, it was just working, but let's go ahead and set it, say, to number anyway. Okay, why are you complaining about that? Maybe I need to do it for both of them. Cannot assign string or number to parameter number. Oh, of course. That doesn't actually fix the problem, does it? No, we're not going to worry about it. It was working, and that's good enough. In fact, if it was working, then maybe you don't even worry about that. It's just going to coerce it. That's good enough. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to convince myself that I wasn't doing something terribly wrong. We're going to come on in here for scroll bar to adjust. We need to set the value. We need the minimum and the maximum. So we're going to set the minimum to 40, the maximum to 300. And we need to know when the value changes. So setting the value to the current scroll bar, yep. And when the changes, we need hang on. We're only changing the number on display. So we just need the current value. No, we don't need the scaled value. We're going to keep it nice and simple. We are going to set that text, but we're going to set it like this. And then we don't need to change all of that. So we just need to set the scaling factor. And so setting the scaling factor, it's actually going to be over here. Scaling equals to string of current value. Cool, because I assume current value is coming off of, yeah, as a number. Okay. Let's take a look and see what that does for us, just as a starting point. Okay, so coming into the options, we can see the scaling is at 1. Let's just take it down to 0.4, all the way up to 3, and it's correctly updating this as well. The one thing it's not doing is updating the size of the window, and I think we could do that in real time. I don't think we need to wait meaningful amounts of time. So the last thing that we missed in here was a redraw function. So what we need is to know, how do we talk to the window? All right, get instance, we can do that. So target window, get instance, redraw. But that's a problem because we don't actually have a redraw function, but we can make one. So function target window redraw. And what this is going to do is it's going to pay attention to that updated setting that we now have. So there's that. Okay, so we are grabbing the value of this, and remember this is in percentages. So if we see the number 300, that represents a 3x scaling. So what we want to do is remember how on earth we scale in this game. But it shouldn't be too bad. What we want to do is take advantage of the set stretch mode, and then we set the size. So we're going to calculate the new size based off of the these values. Whoops. So we're just going to copy these on over. So we're going to have a local starting width equals a local starting height equals. We're going to go ahead and multiply them. Local final width equals scaling scroll bar value times divided by 100 times the starting width. And then local final height equals, I don't like final there. We're going to call it scaled. Scaled height equals, same thing if we were, I've done something weird with that. Okay. Let's actually go ahead and say that divided by 100 right there. So, scaling value equals that, and no divided by 100 times the starting width, and then scaling value times the starting height. Cool. So we need to make sure that we set that stretch mode. So self.set stretch mode, and we're going to set it to 1. And then self, at least I think, we're going to, set size. And instead of the starting widths, starting heights, we're going to go ahead and set the scaled width and scaled height. Okay. Let's see what that's like. Wow, so many errors. Cannot perform arithmetic on bad value. Okay, that's line 95. Yeah, I can see that. Certainly that would be a problem. Okay, that's not great. What did we do wrong here? Okay. I mean, it is pretty cool looking. I appreciate your amusement, Kagosi. Okay, I'm wondering if the fact that we're rendering multiple things as windows here. Yeah, there we go. Yeesh. Because it says, looks sort of cool. Yeah, I mean, this is probably a more colorful way to encounter the wastes. I told it to unload, but I'm not sure it listened. Okay. What are we doing wrong here? I'm guessing there's a couple of problems here. And the first is that we have, I think we quite possibly have windows within windows. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, we're using a window here. And that's because we were doing that opacity thing. Okay, new plan. We were doing an opacity thing, but we don't need to actually use opacity. We can just set it with an icon that is opaque. But for that, we'll need to extract the icons out. Or just grab them off the wiki, because someone's already done that work. Okay, yeah. I think I'll just give LOTRO the old restart here. And that can be a thing to watch out for if you're doing plugin development with Lord of the Rings Online. It is possible for a plugin a badly behaved plugin to gum up the works for the client in such that you might have to restart. But ideally, a plugin developer has resolved all of those issues before they release it into the world. Okay, so what we're going to do is consider, instead of using the built-in icons, we are going to need to extract those out. And that might be more effort than it's worth today. I'm going to be away from LOTRO for a little while. So I think being able to move the window is more important than being able to set the scaling of the window. So I'm going to temporarily hoist out some of this scaling stuff. And that means basically the options window, I think. Because if there's no options window, then we don't have to worry about that for right now. So, in main, if we don't register the options control, then the size is small here, but it's I think it's fine. It's readable in a normal 1920 by 1080 monitor. In a larger monitor, it won't be very good yet, but we are planning to do something about that. Okay, so let's see where we are at. Created language files. Let's go ahead and get some of these in here. In main, that is these here. That's this change here, and I think actually nothing else, because a lot of this is new. We're removing the strings. That was it? Yeah. Okay, let's get that committed. Target window. Created basic settings. Okay, that's this. That is the settings. So register for unload, load, and that's all good. And here we can use this. And that redraw function, that did not work. So we're not going to do anything with that yet. The options, that was just for this, okay. Okay, so that's created basic settings. Great. Options, target window. We need to note. This code does not currently work. My hypothesis is that it is not playing well with the windows for each file. Those are needed to do opacity on the game in-game icon. So the next thing to try, extract out of the file images, make them 25% opaque in an editing program. Use those images when we need to be opaque instead of programmatically making them opaque. Okay, so that's the thing to do. Right now the redraw is not going to do anything. Initial commit of options code not fully working. Okay, so we have that in main. We have that, and oh, I forgot to do that separately. And here, and then added a message when loaded. Cute. Okay, so that's all of those changes. So now we can set that aside and think about how do we move this window. And the quick answer is there is a library over on LOTRO interface that we can try to use. And I don't remember what it's called. But I do know some of the other plugins use it. Let's see if Minstrel Buff is one of them. It is. Let's see how Minstrel Buff does it. New window. We're going to open a folder. Documents, Lord of the Rings Online plugins. Q plugins, Minstrel Buff 2. Okay, so sure. What we want to do is looking at drag bar. That's what it is. Okay, so drag bar lets us do this. And what we want to do is, ideally, I would like to put these into a subdirectory. So let's see how this is used. So buff window, we make sure we import drag bar. That's fine. And we're going to make a drag bar on self, which is the window. And we're going to delete that when it's not appropriate. Okay, so whenever we see the control / key, we'll want to go ahead and do code that looks like that. I'm not looking for that. Okay, well that's cool. Let's give that a shot. However, let's go ahead and try to put that into a subdirectory. So we're going to go ahead and make a new window folder called libraries. And in that we're going to have drag bar. And I'm just going to go on over to the LOTRO interface page and just freshly download that just to make sure I got the latest. Obviously that's not an issue with the last up-to-date date. But also we can go ahead and extract that. Okay, so we have the drag bar in resources. We have drag bar stuff, great. And then the plugins, that's the demos. And the UI, we have that stuff. Great. Is all of that in use here? What is Delta? It is not. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and pull over some of this. So we need dragbar.lua, and we need a resources. And in that, we're going to go ahead and pull in presumably all of these. Okay, what does it use image path for? Stop it. Okay, it uses image path for drag gem click and drag bar. What on earth? Okay, did I change things? I might have changed things. Alright, minstrel buff, resources, drag bar. Fascinating. Okay. Drag gem and drag gem click, drag bar click. Alright. Copy those over. Not move, but it's fine. Okay. And then drag gem, drag bar. Drag. Okay, drag gem, drag bar. Okay, there we go. Drag top left, drag top right. Drag bottom left, drag bottom right. Top mid, mid left. Okay, these all look like they're being referenced. That's good. I just want to make sure there weren't a bunch of things in there that just weren't actively being used. Mid right and bottom mid. Mid right, bottom mid. Awesome. And that's it. So we have in here 12 items. We have 12 items in here. Excellent. So nothing too surprising there. 5.67, 5.67, great. So we have that. And then we also have the drag bar itself. Let's give this a shot and see if we can't implement this. So what we want to do is get inspired by how we're using this. So buff window, UI locked. Okay, so we need to process key down. All right. So how do we get that? We need to set a callback on the key down handler. Is that right? Yeah, sure. Not that one. Okay, so in our target window, we're going to go ahead and say self dot dot key down equals function sender args, and that's going to be self process key down sender args end. Cool. And then we just need to make this. You want to make it for me? You do not. Oh well. Okay. So we want to do something like that. In fact, we want to do something like both of these. So let's go ahead and see what all it doesn't work. So this is going to be target, not buff. Okay. There's also a UI hidden, apparently. UI hidden. Yeah, that works. We need a set visibility? Do we? I don't think we do. So self set visible. When is this getting called? Whenever we toggle the HUD. So this is an override. This is an override to the otherwise show loot. So let's go ahead and have a self.hidden equals false, set to true when HUD is hidden. So the show loot, if self.hidden, then return, and no, we can do everything here. We just don't want to call set visible. That's the file text. Okay, set visible. If, okay, so we want true, and not self.hidden. Right, no. And so that's an and, so if self is hidden is true, then that should not be. I'm going to type it out just to make sure I understand what I'm doing. If self.hidden, then self set visible to false, which is by definition not self.hidden. Else self set visible to true. Yeah, I think I did it right. Okay. We'll give that a try. So, so everything else is done. We're going to go ahead and go to the UI hidden. And we're going to set the visible to are we? I think I just want a second variable. So, show loot, if it's not an herb, what I want to do is say, are we getting here all the time? We're going to go ahead and comment out some stuff here. Spencer buff. Okay, show loot. Yes, we're getting it all the time. That's great. So what I want is two variables. One that tracks whether the squelching is happening, and one that so HUD hidden equals false, self.shown equals false. Self.shown, I want to set that to true whenever we would be setting. So show loot, so self.shown equals true. And we're going to go ahead and set that to self.shown and not self.HUD hidden. And then we can do the same thing down here. Is we're going to set the visible to, so HUD hidden equals that. And then we can just set the visibility equal to that, and that'll show or hide it as appropriate. So what we need is this function needs these values here. So we're just going to pull those in. And we'll probably put them somewhere. I don't know. That's in main. That's as good a place as any. Okay, so self.HUD hidden. There we go. UI locked. And so we need a self.locked for self.locked equals true, can't be moved. Okay, so we have that. We need this function back, and it needs to be fixed now. So we need this to be Herbalism Helper dot libraries dot drag bar. I feel like it is defined. And we're doing self.window, and that is going to be Herbalism Helper. Nope, that's just going to be self. Okay, so drag bar, set bar on top true, set bar visible true, set draggable true, self. Nope, we don't need a size change because we never change size. Okay, now if that's not nil, we're going to set draggable false, set target nil, set it to nil, and then self. Nope, don't care about the size changed, but we want to save position and the set visibility. You know, I could see the benefit of a set visibility function, target window, set visibility, and here we're just going to go ahead and set visible that. And then we don't have to do this logic over and over. Set visibility shown. Great. Save position could be worth it. Yeah, no. Don't know about that. So we're going to go ahead and say settings. No, we're just going to come copy and paste some stuff. Left and top. There we go. So settings, component vitals, left equals self get left equals self get top. There we go. In place of set position. Yeah, let's see how many mistakes I've made there. What? So, Herbalism Helper. Certainly isn't working yet. So, let's see, are we getting this? So, turbine.shell.writeLine, and we'll just say where we are. Press the key down. Okay, we're not receiving that yet. We didn't ask for key. Okay, key. Set wants key events to true. You don't get that by default. It's a lot of extra eventing if you don't need it. So let's go ahead and self wants key events true. Okay. Let's try this. It hides. Oh my goodness, it hides. And attempt to index field libraries. It didn't work. So great. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so let's take a look at the libraries, and we can go ahead and get rid of that one right line. That's not helping. Okay. We're trying to get to here. So cube plugin, Herbalism Helper, libraries, drag bar. Oh, but drag bar itself also needs, I think it needs a resource directory. Yeah, let's fix this and copy it fresh over from here. In fact, I'm curious what the differences are. Okay, that's really different. What's going on there? Well, we're going to go ahead and replace that file. Okay, and then here we need to update the path. So it's going to be Herbalism Helper, libraries, drag bar, resources. Okay. Now, we're still getting attempt to index field libraries, which is a concern. So I'm wondering why that is. But we can double check. Why do you say that's a problem? It's here. Well, this is why I often don't do this. Alright, let's temporarily move drag bar out into Herbalism Helper, just so we can see that it is doing a thing. I never imported it. I am a silly person. Let's go look at that. Look at that import drag bar that we missed. You know, let's go ahead and import it globally. Okay, so this is minstrel buff dot libraries dot drag bar. Let's give that a try. Okay, now we have an unable to resolve package. Right, because I moved the thing. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's interesting. If you don't have an opponent vitals, it's not letting you move it? Oh, that'd be frustrating. But not my problem today. Okay, we can see the key down is still happening. Let's go fix that. There we go. Okay, so what do we have? If we select something while the UI is off, or the HUD is off, then we don't see it. Then we are hiding with the HUD, so that's a lovely quality of life thing. Oh, we did not set the self-shown. We're not setting it to false correctly. So if it's not an herb, then self-shown equals false. And then we can go ahead and do the, where else do we do set visible? That's on the files, okay. So we'll do the set visibility instead, now that we've set the shown to false. Let's go ahead and unload this. We're going to load it, Larkspur, yep. Great, now it is hidden correctly. Okay, and we can move this thing around. Helper? Did I really do that? My goodness. Okay, so we can move this thing around, Herbalism Helper, and if we do that, then it correctly stays or not, depending on whether we're targeting an herb. Let's go ahead and move it up here. And then if we unload and reload, it's where it's supposed to be. Oh my goodness, yes. So, that would be kind of funny to put it on top of something like that. And then you'll only ever see it in the case of an herb. That's interesting. We know we're looking at a larkspur. Can we do anything about that? I don't think so. I guess if the background were opaque instead of transparent, then we could kind of replace it. But I would miss having the name. Oh, I don't want that. I would miss having the name there. So just as a secondary window is fine. I feel like it could be slightly to the right. Okay. So I think that's fine. Gnarled branches, no. Larkspur, it does have it. Great. So the one thing we don't have now is the resizing. And I'm not sure we're going to have it before I'm done with the stream today. And that's okay. So for the options, there are no options available for the plugin. We can circle back around to that next time. Cool. So what we're going to do now is do a really fast release of this plugin so that anyone who's interested can play around with it, let me know if it works for you or if it doesn't. And then when we return, after a week or two off here, we'll do the final bit of remaking it so that we can do resizing. Okay. Oh, we've also got to fix this debug output happening here. So when we where is that happening? Debug. Great. Where is debug happening? Okay, we would like to have some sort of debug output flag. So debug output equals true. Actually, we're going to say false. And then in general functions, I think it was, if not debug output, then return, and there we go. So if we unload this and reload this, then what we're going to see is none of that, which is better. Okay. So currently write line is only happening for loaded and unloaded, and in the debug function if debug output is set to true, which it currently is not. Okay. Okay, is there anything else we want to do before we are done? Well, let's look at our source control here. Added drag bar library. So that is going to be libraries drag bar. Okay. And the import. Added debug output flag. So that's that, and that's in settings. And then finally, added support for moving window, hiding with HUD. Okay, so that is these key definitions. That's this changing of visibility. Process key down, yep. UI locked, UI hidden, set visibility. That's great. Looks good. Okay, so if we're going to release a version 1 of this, we need to do a couple of things. First of all, we need to change the plugin file. The plugin file currently is version, it's a development version. So we're going to go ahead and release version 1.0.0. When you target an herb, you will see a second target window that shows the expected contents of the herb. Note, some herbs always have the same number of files. For instance, what? For instance, dwarf spirit. For instance, dwarf spirit always has one umber. While others have variable drops. The Fateful Toolkit bonus applies for each file type that drops. And is taken into account by Herbalism Helper. Happy foraging. Okay, let's take a look and see how that renders here. This plugin is designed to help you on your quest to assist. Let's get a new line in here. Let's get a couple new lines in here. Okay, welcome to Herbalism Helper. The plugin is designed to help you on your quest to assist the herbalist of North Pavilion / the Wastes. And the Wastes. Okay. When you target an herb, you will see a second target window that shows the expected contents of the herb. Use your, what is it called? Key mapping. Move. No. Lock. Wait. Name things the way they're supposed to be in the game. What do we call this thing? Reposition UI. Thank you, past me. Reposition UI. Use your reposition UI key binding. Is it default? Default control plus, oh, I don't know. Hang on a second. LOTRO keybinds. There's an image from like the initial release of the game. F12 is toggle HUD on and off. Okay, yeah, there it is, reposition UI. Very interesting place for the backslash. Okay, default control plus backslash. To move this window. Okay. Use your reposition UI, keep finding default control plus backslash to move this window. Note, some herbs always have the same number of files. For instance, Orchid always have one umber, while others have variable drops. The variable toolkit bonus applies for each file type that drops and is taken into account by Herbalism Helper. Happy foraging. Fantastic. So that is that. That's a reasonable looking description for this. So we're going to go ahead and say that that's done. What else do we need to do? Herbalism Helper, that's it. Herbalism Helper. We don't need the VS Code folder, but we need libraries, resources. That's the main icon, okay. Turbine files, and Flora general images, main option settings, and target window. Great. All of that seems awesome. Let's start making a release. So, in Documents, we have a Plugin Along releases. That's where we do releases here. Let's go ahead and make a new folder called Herbalism. And is there a space here? Herbalism Helper. There is not. Herbalism Helper v1.0.0. Okay. And what is normally in these? It's at the cube plugin level. So, cube plugins. And then underneath that, we have the Herbalism Helper.plugin and the folder. But in Herbalism Helper, we don't want the VS Code folder. That was a mistake. So L, that's those three libraries. That's the drag bar plus all of its stuff. Resources, don't actually need the 140%. And turbine files, all of that. Lovely. Okay, so the second thing we need is a, what in the nuts? The second thing we need is a zip file. So we want the zip file to be named the same thing. And within that, we want to drag that Cube plugins folder. That needs to be the root. And we can double check that with any one of our other zip files. Coming in here, we can see Cube plugins. Great. So we have that. What we don't have are the text that we want to put up on LOTRO interface. For instance, if we come on over to Deadly Decoy, this is a kind of a bare bones text here. So, in the Hunter Deadly Decoy folder, where do we have? Did we even bother to save that off? We might not have. Let's go ahead and yank that. And we're going to be making a new, my goodness, a new plugin. So, how do we do that? Normally I go to the home page, but it's doing something weird here. I feel like I have like an ad blocker or something that's being too aggressive. So, when in doubt, turn it off. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remember how on earth to make a plugin on this site. Submit. There we go. So, how do we do this? It's been so long, I've got to remind myself. This page is for interface/add-on authors that wish to host their work with LOTRO interface. If you're submitting a new one, please use the Upload Interface selector box. If you wish to update one, please use the Update. All right, we are going to do an update. Is it for stuff? It's kind of for Target, but not really. Standalone plugins. Action bar is a min bar. Bag bank inventory. Class specific. Nope. Crafting, no. Graphical modification. Skins, not really. Map coordinates. Compasses. Other. Probably an other. What was below that? Yeah, let's go other. Alright, choosing a file. We're going to come on in here for Herbalism Helper. And that's it. We should do images. Great. So, let's make a few pixels difference there between these two. Okay. We're going to go ahead and do some basic cropping using Ms. Paint. A nice border of like 2 pixels there. That's fine. Very weird that it doesn't snap to the grid anymore when you're doing that. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's move it over here and get that saved. Documents. Oh, where am I going to put it? Lord of the Rings Online. I guess, yeah, I'm going to have a Herbalism Helper, and we're going to do docs, .docs folder. And this is a Larkspur with toolkit. And then the next one we want is a Larkspur without the toolkit. Great. So we'll go ahead and snip that. So, new one. My goodness, that's not my favorite way to use this program. You're making me regret not just going into a new image manipulation program. But, alright, we'll do one of these at a time. My goodness, Control G, huh? Yeah. Okay, that's better. Okay, so that is going to be, why don't the keyboard shortcuts work anymore? Okay, that's the Larkspur without those. And let's go look at a different one. Yeah, like Avon Gleam. Great. Okay. So this is going to be save as, and that's Avon Gleam without toolkit. Okay, but we do want to go ahead and shrink it down. Too much. There we go. Okay, so that's Avon Gleam without toolkit. Okay, so that's 3 pictures. I feel like that's all we need. Great. Manage images. So we're going to choose some files. This is coming from Documents, Plugin Along. Nope, Documents, Lord of the Rings Online. Plugins, Q plugins, Herbalism Helper, .docs, and this is Avon Gleam toolkit, Avon Gleam without toolkit. Okay, that's the first one. Caption. Oh, you know what? I do want to close this window. Is that still there? Yeah, okay. I would like to have one of the basic ones that just shows a single number. And for that, I might need to get myself down to North of Thillion. Fortunately, I am pretty close. It's underneath my head. Yeah. Horsetail. Okay, so horsetail has a flat number. That's great. So we're going to go ahead and snip that, but ideally without anything behind it. Wait. There we go. There we go. Okay, and from that, we're going to go ahead and get into Ms. Paint. Same thing, we're just going to do some very basic formatting. Okay, there's our 2 pixel margin. And 2. Okay. So that is going to be horsetail without toolkit. Great. What we'd like to do, manage images. We're going to choose, that's going to be horsetail without some herbs always give the same number of files. Upload. Avengleam. Some herbs give a range of files. Okay, we're going to choose larkspur without. Some herbs can give multiple types of files. And then larkspur with, if you have a fateful toolkit, Herbalism Helper, this is taken into account. Upload. Great. Close this window. Interface type title. Herbalism Helper 1.0.0. Is it spaced in here? Yes. Okay. Herbalism Helper. And then we need a description. So, LOTRO interface, deadly decoy. We're going to go ahead and borrow this one. Really? Okay. So we're going to borrow this by clicking Edit, coming in here, copying all that, and then coming on in here for the description. So this is Introduction, Hunter Deadly Decoy, no. Herbalism Helper pops up a window showing the expected loot from a North Phillian or the Wastes herb. To move the window, oh, I already have this description, don't I? Plugins, keep plugin, purpose, there we go. To move. And there are no options. Okay, installation and startup to install. Unzip the archive. Look at a folder called Q Plugins. Move this into your Documents folder, Plugins folder. To load the plugin, use the game's built-in plugin manager. This can be found in the caret menu at the bottom of the screen. Click the blah icon. Hopefully that's correct. Then choose System and then Plugin Manager. As a shortcut, you can also type Plugin Manager in your hat. When the Plugin Manager opens, find Herbalism Helper on the list on the left side. Click Load, select. You gotta say select Herbalism on the left side. Click Load to load the plugin. If you would like the plugin to load automatically, blah blah, choose that. Known issues. Window cannot be resized. Look for this in a future update. Okay. Version 1.0. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is 2025-06-17 version blah initial release. Seems fine. Allow updates and add-ons. Sure, people can contribute. Rules and guidelines. You must attach both a zip file and an image when required. A picture is worth 1,000 words and helps plugin users immensely. You must include blah blah blah. Executable files are not allowed. Do not include contained zip files. We're not a compilation. You certified to best your knowledge that it's free of bad stuff. It conforms to the EULA, free of charge. Okay. Not harmful. Free front of advertisements. No time limit. Free to use. Yep. It accurately describes the contents. And it's great. Upload. Okay. So, there is a non-zero amount of time until someone can approve an upload or an update of a plugin. Sometimes the maintainers of the site are super fast. Sometimes they're asleep or on vacation. So I try not to be too impatient. Oftentimes, if I'm going to post something on the forums saying it exists, I'll work on that while I'm waiting, with the hope that maybe someday it will get updated in the background. However, if I go to LOTRO interface here and I look at list my interfaces, then I'm going to see Herbalism Helper is pending, and no one has downloaded it. What a surprise. That's fine. Okay. Neat. So, what did we do today? We made a plugin, and we released a plugin, and added box folder with images. Let's go ahead and commit those, and let's come on in and tag this. New tag, v1.0.0, create. And we're going to go ahead and push both of those, push all tags. Okay, so we went ahead and adjusted the size of this window to match the default size of the unscaled offensive vitals window, with the thought that we were going to go ahead and resize this within the options window. But probably due to the fact that each one of these is itself a window, that caused us problems. Ideally, you're only doing that scaling thing in a window that only contains controls, not other windows, I think. So what we're going to do is replace each of these windows that are windows because they can then become opaque with controls that are either hosting the full or opaque version of the file that we're going to have to make ourselves. And then once that's in place, we should be able to go ahead and make this window resizable. And that's what we are going to work on next time, is making it resizable. And then if it is, assuming that we haven't had any bugs come in the meantime, we'll be able to release a version 1.0.1 where the window is resizable. Other than that, I've been playing this for a week or two in the wastes primarily, and a little bit in the Amphibian, finishing up the herbalist quests. And it has just been really solid for me. I haven't seen any issues where the prediction doesn't match the acquisition. And it's kind of a fun little game, right? You walk up, you harvest the thing, and make sure it matches what you saw. 3. Well, it said it was going to be 3. It was 3. Awesome. Or one of the variable ones can be fun. 3 to 5. Okay, is the number we're getting between 3 and 5? 5. Yes, perfect. So one thing, in order to start these numbers, I went to the wiki and I took what it said the loot was, and I started with that. But then I went ahead and updated as I saw things that were out of the bounds of what the wiki said I was going to get. So my numbers are more correct than the wikis, but they might not be 100% correct. Because for one thing, if it's in the North Athelian area, I just don't get that nearly as often as I get ones in the wastes, because I've been spending a lot more time in the wastes. You know, I feel like that's true, but now that we're done questing in the wastes, most of the herbalist quests are actually in North Athelian, so maybe it all evens out. But I don't actually want the files from North Athelian nearly so much as I want the ones from the waste. So I think that's probably why I have that impression. Okay, but we have released it. If any of you are in North Ithilien or the Wastes and want to know what you're about to get before you get it, then go ahead and download this plugin whenever it's available, and it'll do that for you. And if you don't, no worries. This is a plugin primarily for me and maybe like 2 other people. This isn't a general purpose plugin. If you're not in North Ithilien or the Wastes, it has absolutely no use for you. But for those people who are and find it interesting, I hope you enjoyed as much as I have enjoyed making it. And with that, I think we are all caught up on chat there, and so we are rapidly approaching the end of the stream. I just can't let these Eyes of Night go without grabbing them. And the music's getting dramatic, so it must be time for the end of the stream. Okay, let me check my notes here. Yes. Okay. Then, yep, that's everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope to see you here next time, which is either in 2 or 3 weeks, depending on how transit goes. But until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.